In this tutorial, I'd like to talk about CSS Dropdown Menus, and I'll use the example from w3schools.com and incorporate that into an existing site. And for the next few tutorials this week, I'd like to choose some of the different CSS techniques and incorporate those, like the drop-down menus, the rounded corners, image opacity, shadows, things like that. And then what we'll do next week is we will go back to the CSS layout and build another site from scratch and try to incorporate more with the design for the site. So that's kind of where we're going over the next couple weeks. But what I wanted you to do this week is just practice incorporating some of these techniques into your pages. Now, you may or may not use these in a project or for a website, but I think it's fun to kind of try these out and see how they work. So I'm on the CSS Dropdowns page. So you want to go up to the CSS on W3 Schools, the CSS tutorial. Scroll down until you see CSS Dropdowns, and then scroll down to the very bottom. You'll see the drop-down nav bar. Now there's a whole lot of other techniques that you might want to try, image rollovers and individual buttons and things like that. But for this tutorial, we'll just incorporate this drop-down menu into our existing website. So I'm going to click on Try It Yourself. I'm going to check this code out. Now, again, in the interest of time, what I'll do is copy and paste, and then I will just put it into the HTML as opposed to the separate CSS style sheet. But best practice, if you were actually going to use this in your site, you would probably put this in a .css file as opposed to in the head of your document. But again, for demonstration purposes, we'll just keep it all on one page right here. So this is your code that you're using. It's kind of a mix of lists and floats and hovers and drop downs and text decorations to get the button effect and content, and then there's the hover down here. So it's pretty typical if you are looking at other drop downs. Now some drop down menus do use JavaScript, and you'll see more code with that, but for this one it's pretty simple. It's pretty much just CSS. So I'll go ahead and grab the style tag, all of this right here, and I'll copy it, and let me come on over here to brackets and open up my code. So the one I'm using here is just my simple site that I've been demonstrating. Looks like this right here. Now I'm going to go back to brackets, and I'm going to put that code in at the top. So in the head of my document up here before it closes, I'll go ahead and put that in. Now I do still have the link to the attached style sheet, but what I'll do is I'll change the code here for the menu so that it no longer refers to the CSS style sheet. It's going to refer to the code that I just dropped into the head of the document up here at the top. And then what you can do if you try to put this in, then you can start to customize. And I won't really do too much of that in the tutorial, but you would want to customize the code up here after you insert it and make sure it works. So now the next thing I need after I put in the style tag at the top, I need to go ahead and grab the code in the HTML. So if I check that out, you can see that there is right here in the body tag, there's a UL and an LI, and that's where I'm going to find my little nav bar. Okay, so I'm going to grab all of this right here, and I'll go ahead and copy it, and I'll come over here, and I want to look and see where my navigation bar is. It's right here in the class, this division class. It has a top nav on the name. I'm just going to get rid of that for now and go ahead and paste that into that area right where you see that. And I'll go ahead and click File, Save All. And I'll come back and refresh this. Alright, and that fits in there pretty nicely. So now if you want to start customizing this, maybe you don't like the color, maybe you want to add another one on here. You want to go back to your code. So the top one on here, the UL, this is going to be the background for the nav bar, and it does have a few things like margin and padding and background color. So if I wanted to experiment with this, I could change the color. I'll change the hexadecimal here, just add in a few digits, refresh. Notice that the background color changed on that. Some other things to try here. You'll see, let's see, there's the red color for the hover. So if you don't like red right there, let me just change that to white so we can see that a little bit better. Here's some other colors I could actually choose based on what the browser will support. Okay, so you can see that changes that drop down color. I would need to change the text color as well if I was going to stick with that. Here's the padding on here, so if you want it to be a little bit smaller or larger. No text decoration on there. Let's see, drop down content. Here is the background color for the drop down. So if I change that around, let me change this here to all white just so we can see that working. Refresh. So that's all white right now for the drop down, and then you even have colors for the rollovers. So you probably get the idea here how you can begin to customize this. There's a box shadow on there, and then here's more color for text, padding for the drop down content, all kinds of things you can control. And then the other part of this would be if you wanted to add in more links or more drop down buttons on here. So you can see if you look at the code, you've got the first link, the home, news, and then here's the drop down on this. And if we compare it here, it says drop down. So if you wanted to add another one of those, that would be the code that you would want to duplicate here. So this starts with the LI all the way down to close LI. And let's say I want to add another one right after this. Looks just like that. I'll put some space in here so you can see it. So I added that. And then you might want to change the actual link that is being displayed in the menu. So I'll just call that dropdown 2. Go ahead and save and refresh over here. And you can see now dropdown 2 has appeared with the same links, and I could change those around. So looking at the code again, if you wanted to add the links in, those would go where the hashtag is. And you could add a blank if you wanted, if you're going to pop up something, but that would pretty much do it as far as customizing and adding in the drop-down menu. Now, the other part of this would be the usability of drop-down menus. So while it's kind of cool to integrate these and try them out, you may not need them in your site. I mean, sites like ESPN or CNN, they've got hundreds of different pages that they're trying to organize and make the site usable. So drop-down menus do work well for that. Also for university websites, they use drop-downs a lot as well. But for a site that you're creating and it doesn't have a lot of pages, it becomes more of a novelty to put it in that you probably don't need. But that's up to you if you are going to incorporate this in, because they are kind of cool to try out and put in your website. But that's going to be it for this simple tutorial on integrating a CSS dropdown into your website.